Hello, mamas. We are so glad to have you here today. I'm delighted to be joined by our guest, Eugenia. Can you say your last name? Because I'm going to screw it. Battaglia. We practiced this before I hit record and I still didn't get it right. Eugenia Battaglia, who is a wardrobe stylist. She has been for 15 years. She said before we started, she mostly works with women, but a few brave men once in a while. She is also a mama and has a number of children, which I'm sure she'll talk about in a little bit. And we're delighted to have you here today to talk about your making getting dressed easy.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yes.
I've never spoken to so many mothers all at once.
All at once.
This is all it speaks to my heart.
Oh, very good. So what is one thing you would like mamas to know about getting dressed and fashion and styling and like what would you say to moms that are thinking about fashion?
Let's see, because we tend to be so hard on ourselves and our bodies, especially after we bear children, that perfection doesn't exist. Let's just start with that. Perfection doesn't exist. You mentioned Instagram not being sort of a fake world, and it is. I couldn't agree with you more. Whatever we see on Instagram, it's not real life, and I think we can all attest to that. And it's wonderful, and that's how a big part of my business is Instagram and social media. But be careful, because we dive into those comparison modes, and it's hard to get out of it. And then we turn into shame, and that's not good. So we are beautiful the way we are, and then we just progress from that. But perfection doesn't exist. It's a myth.
Doesn't exist. And so when it comes to like styling and when you work with clients, what do they usually come to you for and how do you help them?
They usually come to me because they are not happy with what they have in their wardrobe. They don't love how their body's being portrayed in the mirror. So by that, I mean, by the clothes, it's not your body, it's the clothes that we choose to cover our body with. That can either help us, that will either make us look frumpy or make us feel like a badass, right? And sexy and feminine and powerful and all those wonderful things that we want to be. So before you start judging your body, that's what it is. And they want to save time and money. They want to feel more confident. They want to come back to themselves. So they want to seek help in how to dress themselves to their brand, to whom they are, both professionally and personally, in their lifestyle. So that is why they are owners of companies. Some are just entrepreneurs. Some are just mamas. Some are mamas starting, there were a company for the first time. A lot of them are women that are coming from the corporate world and are tired of wearing those dark, depressing suits and the button downs, and they want to change from that. And how do they acclimate but still look and feel good and professional and their brand? So, yeah.
And what's one thing that you do? You said like they want to both feel amazing and have a great wardrobe and save time and money. So what are a few tips and tricks you can give our mamas to do both? Save time, save money, and look great.
Well, we need to start. One of the biggest tricks is to get a bra fitting. I'm sure you didn't see that one coming.
Yes. I know. You know what? I used to sell custom fit bras when I was 16. I would go in and measure people up and tell them why their bra had to fit properly. It's one of the most important things ever.
It really is, Andrea. And that's because it actually can look like you've lost weight. And we can have all of our parts sitting where they need to, right? The chest, the waist, the hips, the legs, and so on. But if things are all being meshed together, and because everything, especially after we give birth and we nurse, if some of us have chosen to nurse or not, things just kind of tend to have to be droopy and go down in gravity. So it's very important that every single year we go and get a bra fitting and make sure that the chest is sitting where it needs to be. That's a simple trick that doesn't cost any money to go get fitted. but it can make such a tremendous difference before we go shopping and before we start adding those foundational pieces, those basics to our wardrobe.
Okay,
Yes.
and for someone who hasn't done a bra fitting, where do you go? How do you find out where to get a bra fitting? Like, what does that look like?
Well, let's keep it simple. If you live by if you have a mall where you live, and if you happen to have either a Macy's or a Dillard's or a Nordstrom, you can walk in there and they will give you a bra fitting, complimentary. And you should have and own anywhere between 3 to 5 bras, so that you are always constantly rotating and letting the elasticity rest. Yes. Undergarments is extremely important and foundational.
It's so important. Okay, so like that elasticity resting thing. Tell me about that for a second, because I know that that's what they tell me where I get fitted, but why? Why do you need the elasticity to rest?
Because you're wearing them. They will stretch just like a pair of jeans. What happens if you wear the same jeans every day, right? Or even after sometimes 2 hours, they stretch out. They don't fit and mold your body the way they should anymore. Same thing with the bra. They need to rest. The elasticity then will go back sitting in your drawer, properly sitting, not folded and bunched up in a bunch of chaos of underwear, if that makes sense. And then the elasticity, and then when you go and wear it again, even if it's 48 hours later, then the bra will fit you better, and it will hold you better. So everything needs a break from time to time.
Everything needs a break. There's a lot of wisdom in that, isn't there? So go get a great bra fitting. Make sure your undergarments fit. That's like the number one tip to making getting dressed easy and where it's cost effective and beautiful.
Yeah, the correct underwear, make sure there's no panty lines, simple things like that. The right fitting undergarments for whatever you may need. If you're wearing a dress or a skirt, it doesn't matter what size you are. So stop that thinking, oh yeah, because you are a certain size. No, we all do. From 0 to 28, whatever. Everybody needs the proper underwear.
Yeah, totally true. Okay, so flipping a little more into parenting, I'm curious, what's one lesson you learned from your mother?
I love this question. And the first thing that came to mind when I read this question was unconditional love. And with unconditional love came with what was it that I wrote down? It came with put yourself last. Because she loved so deeply and so much, and she loved us all so much and did everything for us, that she put herself last. So I grew up, and as a mama and as a mother, also putting myself last. I did everything for my kids in the beginning, especially because by the age of 28, I was divorced with 3 children under the age of 6. Mm-hmm. And so I did everything I could to make sure that they were taken care of in a sense of love, from that sense. So but yes, unconditional love. That was the main thing to this day. She loves everyone and loves deeply. And I love that.
That's awesome. And I'm curious because our theme this year is all about like embracing the imperfections as our parents. So I'm curious, what's a time when you thought that you messed up as a parent, which I'm sure there's lots of, because I know you're a parent, like we all think that, right? Just one. And then when it turned out okay. So I want to hear where you thought you messed up and when it turned out okay.
All right. So like you said, there were plenty. Which I've had to let go of. But the one that I feel like it made such a huge impact was when I got divorced for the second time. So I remarried after my children's father divorced me. The first man that knocked on my door. I wanted a father figure. I wanted my kids to be taken care of, right? I wanted that love. I wanted that impression that everything was going to be okay. And one of them was to fill that space that I thought it needed to be filled, that I wasn't enough, of having a father in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I married a very kind gentleman. He was very sweet to my children, very good, but it was never enough as far as him and I.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we stuck it out. I stuck it out for 8 years, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And I think I was brave enough to just say, okay. But I knew what that was also going to be doing to my kids, because that was their father figure. I mean, they grew up. One was 5, one was 4, and the other one was 8 when he came in the picture. So that was
Totally. Same thing. It totally makes sense. And I had the same thing. I know that I married again after my kid's dad. And I remember thinking, actually, I called my mom when I knew it wasn't going to work. And I was like, Mom, I think I'm going to get divorced again. Like, I think I can't make this work. And she said to me, she has like these really smart one-liners. And she said to me, well, sometimes it's better to admit that you made a mistake than try to live with one. And I was like,
ooh, girl, that's good. That's juicy.
So, but then I also knew that it would affect like my kids, and it was this whole, and yeah. So, and how are your kids now with that?
Oh yeah, it totally affects them. It's the second time you've let's call it, you've broken down a home in a way, for lack of better words, right? It's not their fault. We make these choices as adults, and we go through what we go through, and now they're good. They are very different children. I have 3 different children. They're each very unique in their own way, their own personalities. I've just recently, believe it or not, that's an interesting question, because a couple months ago, I had a feeling that I wanted to take each and every single one of them separately to therapy. And I wanted to hash it out, in a sense, and let's just talk about some hard things. Let's talk about, back then, I'm sorry for what I've done, and did this cause you major trauma? Or are you okay? How much damage in your eyes have I done to you? I wanted to hear from them, and I wanted to start a hard conversation, so that big elephant in the room that I felt like it's been around could maybe tone down, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, this is going to be hard. And I did that, all 3 of them in 1 week. By the end of the week, I was like, why did I do that? Why did I not space it out? It was energetically, that was a lot, but it was so good.
And what did they say? Like, this is kind of what I'm curious about. The things that you thought damaged them, that you thought were like the big, oh my gosh, this is what you're going to be feeling like was damage. Was it those issues, or was it totally other things? Or like, how did that work for you?
Oh my gosh. They all kind of had one common denominator, and it was guilt. They said that there were times that they felt that I made them feel guilty of one thing or another. That was a hard one, because that was so never my intention, and that hurt. That guilt. My son, he chose to live with his dad at the age of 15, and it destroyed me. It was all about me. When he left, he was leaving me. He wasn't leaving because maybe it was the right choice, and he wanted to be with dad, and it was the age, and he had a better maybe friends at where dad was, which he did, and better school environment, which he did. But I was so immature then, and my spirituality and my work had not been done yet enough. That it was all about me, and it destroyed me. So when he would come over, or when he would choose not to come over, I would say, well, your sisters miss you. We miss you. You never want to come around us. It's always about the other family type of thing. That's And I so did not mean any harm, but it came out that way. All I wanted was my son to be with us, to spend some time with us. And it came out opposite. And I felt so sorry. I felt it hurt me to hear that.
Yeah. And it teaches them resilience, right? Like they learn resilience, and they have better communication tools, and they have better emotional skills when they've been through some hard stuff, and then they have to figure out how to deal with it.
Very much so.
Yeah.
They turned out very brave adults.
Very, very brave adults. Who's somebody that you admire as a parent?
My husband now. I remarried since, and I really admire him as a parent. He has not had an easy life either, and also being a parent, it hasn't been easy for him, but he knows how to really teach his children to work and to value money and to go after it. You know, keep your head down and keep at it. Go to work. That's a saying. Go to work with love. And I love that.
That's awesome. And what's one lesson that your kids have taught you?
Bravery.
How so bravery?
These kids have had to be very brave. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, going back and forth, whatever's gone on in different homes and whatever they've heard throughout their young years, they've had to be brave.
Yeah.
It can't be easy. I can attest to that because I didn't grow up that way. I grew up a little differently, but yeah.
Very, very true. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and for being here to share your wisdom and the importance of a great bra and great undergarments and how to get fitted, and then share also the heart of being a mama. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Rich Christensen, and through the years of entrepreneurship and growing crazy businesses, I lost a view of what was really important. Through a series of really tender experiences, my mentor taught me you can replace anything in this world, but you cannot replace your family. So I made a dramatic pivot and started embedding deeply in my family some of the same principles that applied to business. My wife and I began very deliberately parenting. We looked for models, how not to mess our children up. There were really no good models to teach values, to entrench family unity, and to make sure that the values passed on in legacy to my children, and more importantly, my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So like every great entrepreneur, I secretly created my own models. I was very hesitant to talk about it, but a few of my closest friends saw the impact that this was having on my children. I decided to take the processes that I used and create an online course so others could also work with their families to create tighter bonds, build confidence and self-esteem, while constructing a gorgeous legacy that they could live on past our lifetime. With this 5-part digital training series, you'll find the single most important lessons of thought leadership that I've ever created. There's 5 critical parts to this series, each with its very unique function. The first is symbols, creating unifying symbols that we all can touch to. Second is the doctrine, the guiding principles that we can tag and understand what the rules are. The third is the traditions or the rituals, where we actually formalize and we unite and show that we're unified with the values. The fourth, my favorite, the defining life events. The final section of this is the structure. What do the really wealthy families do to preserve their wealth and to pass on in the form of family banking? To pass on how you appropriately set up the will and how you embed your family constitution so that these values permeate and pass on. I can tell you firsthand that taking these steps to create a beautiful life for my family is the most important work that I've ever done and also the most rewarding. I would invite you to learn some of these principles, unify your family, bond them, and take some of the guesswork out of this. And I'm going to provide you the framework to make that happen with this 30 years of life experiences. So join me, get your membership to build family legacies today.